Hey guys, so welcome back. Today I'm going to be tying a Goldy. Here's one that I already tied up. It's a really simple pattern as far as streamers go, and especially articulated streamers. It's just really easy you can crank out a whole bunch in a short amount of time. So you don't need very many materials. All you're going to need is white marabou, of course. You're going to need for the body. You can use polar chenille. I've got gold that I'm going to use because Goldy. And then I've also got this pearl, which I tie some in, and they look really neat also. Just kind of a little different variant off of the original. You're also going to want your white. I'm just going to use this vise white thread and a size 4 like Series U or something. I don't know. I don't even remember. So it's like some special series, but just like a size 4 or size 6 streamer hook, depending on how big a fish you're fishing for. And then you're gonna want your cone head. And I have gold, but I like the silver more than the gold usually because it's a Goldy. You use gold. I like to use silver though because I think they look more realistic. I don't know. I think it just goes good with the white. So here we go. Okay, so you're gonna put your first hook in the vise, clamp it down so it's secure, and then start your thread wraps at the eye, work your way on back. I got this new right bobbin just a couple days ago and I'm still not used to it yet, so it's really cool though. Girl design, I really like it so far. Okay, so you're going to take your marabou, you're going to tie in your tail now, and find one, just kind of look through what you have and find one that just looks like a really clean feather. You want probably your cleanest feather for the very back, because that's what's going to show off and be the tail. Here's a good one I just found. So you're going to single that one out and get down to the base and pull it out like that. Okay. And then some people just like to use all of it and don't cut anything off, but it kind of looks a little messy. So I like to just strip down the base like this, and then you just got that base there. Okay, now I'm going to wet this like that, and gonna measure the hook shank. So I want my tail to be the same size as my hook shank, so right there. I'm gonna bring that back, and now I'm going to tie it in just like this. Bring it up, set it where you want it, and then you can pull tight. That looks good. Okay, now make sure it's in there secure. So I'm just going to wrap it back a couple times. Now it's in there good. So now I'm just going to cut that, the extra. Make sure you have sharp scissors. Okay, now I'm going to use my UV gold on this one. And I'm just going to open up the package, pull it out. And if you want, you can just cut it. I don't have very much left. You can cut however much you think you're going to use, but sometimes you waste a lot. So I just leave it like this, and then I'm going to cut a little off here so it gives, you can kind of see, it gives you a good spot to tie in. So I'm going to tie this in here. There we go. Now bring your thread all the way to the top, and if you have a rotary vise, this is a really good fly to have a rotary vise if you really want to crank a ton of these out, like these and then rusties. Other flies where you use this polar chenille for the wrap, you can just crank a ton out if you have a rotary, because then you just put your thread on the bobbin cradle and then hold it at an angle and start wrapping, and you can just, it goes a lot faster if you have a rotary than not. So you're just gonna put them in an angle, and if you don't, that's totally fine also, because maybe you can even make cleaner wraps sometimes without a rotary vise. So you're gonna bring all the way to the top, and that looks really good right there. It just almost looks like hackle. That's what you're pretty much going for, is the same kind of look as hackle. So now I'm going to tie this in here at the top, and it's pretty good. That's the bad thing about leaving it, is you get tangled up sometimes. I'm going to tighten up this bobbin here. Hold on. Okay. Bring this up. Okay, that's in good. Now we're going to get my sharper scissors over here, and I'm going to clip that just so. Now put this back in your bag. Put your extra back in your bag before you lose it and accidentally gets thrown away, because that's not good. And now you're going to use your fingers to pull back that puller chenille, and you're just going to kind of make a head on the fly right here, so you can make kind of a base for you, so you can tie in your second little bit of marabou. So now that that's done, I'm gonna select another thing of marabou. Let's see, this one looks pretty good here. Okay, pull it out, strip the bit. Just got to get rid of that crappy stuff down at the base, but everything else is good. You're not supposed to lick these, so here's a cool trick I learned from Kelly Gallup. Use a skid of sponge, and then just one of these fly box, green fly box, I mean everybody has them if you go to the fly shop, and then cut a sponge out and put the sponge in here, wet it down, and it'll just stay wet. I mean, I haven't wet this thing for probably 4 months, and it's still wet. So you can just like set your thumb here and go like that twice, and there you go, your feather's wet, and you can set that great too. And here you just kind of want to look and kind of settle it. I usually do it about half the length of that tail there, so if you can see, it's kind of half as far as the tail is. So now I'm going to bring that down. Let's see, straighten it out. Okay, now I'm going to tie this in. Just like that. And cut all of this out, all that extra. And I mean, this head doesn't need to look pretty because the fish aren't going to see it, so you don't really need to worry about it. Just make sure, oh boy, looks like I just almost cut all my thread off. You just want to make sure that the fish aren't going to see it, so just make sure that you have it's good and tight so it doesn't start coming off back here. So I'm going to wrap back, and now I'm going to get my whip finisher, and I'm just going to whip finish this. And then we'll start on the articulation. So for when I'm articulating my flies, I either use backing or mono. Lately I've been using ultra green, and it's been working. It works pretty good. It doesn't give it as much natural movement, but it does, it holds together better, and I think that sometimes when you're casting your fly, the two hooks get tangled, if you know what I mean, and they look just as good when you're using mono than backing. Okay, so I'm going to grab my mono down here. So, just found this. Alright, we're going to use my Maxima. This is 15 pound. Some people use 30 pound, but it doesn't give it as natural movement. And if you're not fishing for like massive fish, steelhead or anything, the 15 pound will hold it just as well. So you're going to just put it through the eye of the hook like that. It's so much easier than doing backing. Backing it's such a pain to get it through. Alright, so now you got that. Now I just set this aside, and I'm going to get my other hook now. Some people like to use a bigger hook on the front than the back, but I just use the same size. Now you're going to get your your cone head. These are great organizational tools for beads or cone heads. I've got like 3 of them and they're perfect. So we're just gonna slip this on here. Like that. Silver, I think. Silver works better, just trust me. Okay, so now I'm going to wrap back to the base. And I'm going to take my other fly as soon as I'm in here. I need to get new scissors. My scissors are going dull on me. Okay, so take this and try to keep that on top of each other. Keep the mono on top of each other. And if you have beads, I don't have articulating beads. That's great and it works great. If you don't, no big deal. Just put the eye of the hook closer to the back of the hook shank. So see if you can see my eye is right here where the back of the hook, the bent back of the furthest part of the hook ends, or the bend of the hook. And where it goes the furthest back, it's perfectly lined up right there, almost. It's just a little bit further. But I like it right there. I'm going to trim this real quick so it's out of my way. And I'm going to wrap. And make sure this is on top. Just like that. And make sure you get pretty good heavy wraps going right now, because you don't want to have that mono slip out on a big fish if he's tail hooked. Alright. Gonna do that. Make it so it goes underneath there. Throw your trash away. Now move back to the back of the hook shank. Let's see. Okay, now we're all the way back here, and now you're gonna just want to look to see where your thing is, and we're gonna go all the way to back to where it's just starting to bend right there. So that's just about how much you want. If you have a bead, it works great to put it further back, but if you don't have a bead, that's about perfect right there. Okay, so I don't have a deal to hold my fly back, so I use pipe cleaners, and they work great too. Okay, so now you're going to get your marabou for the tail, and this is another time where you kind of want to use a bigger plume than the head. So you're going to strip all that crap out of there. Throw it in the trash. Okay. Now, use your handy dandy fly box to wet it down. Just like that. And then measure it out. I want it to be the same size as the hook shank, so we're going to bring it back right there. Alright, tie it in. Do a couple wraps and then make sure it's set good. And it looks like it is, and we're going to tie it in. Okay, so that's done there, and I'm going to put another plume in there because I don't think this feather has enough. So I'm going to look here again, and I'm going to select another really fluffy one. Marabou's so much fun. It's the coolest. I like marabou. It doesn't like me though. Okay. Get all that crap out of there. This one right here is like perfect for the tail. It's got just a ton of fluff there on the end, if you can see. Okay, I'm gonna do the same thing there. Wet it down. Alright. So I'm going to do that perfect. Now I'm going to tie this one into the back just the same way I did. Do a couple wraps. Make sure it's set. It's set. Now set it in. Perfect. Alright, cut that extra. Now you're going to get out your rest of your polar chenille. Pop that out of the bag real quick. And okay, so here's something I forgot to say. It's pointed one way, so if you can see, it's pointed toward my right hand here, or toward this way. And you want to start out where it's, you don't want to tie it in this way. You want to tie it in so it's with the grain of the fly, if that makes sense. So I'm going to use this end instead, because you can see it's starting here. Now I'm going to pull this stuff up. I kind of said this in the beginning, but you're gonna pull this up, and you're gonna just cut out that polar chenille stuff, just at the tip, only like a ½ inch, and then so you got that, and then that's like a perfect spot to tie onto, and it'll be a lot easier to tie that in without all that polar chenille stuff getting in your way. Okay, so you're going to tie that in, and now bring your thread back all the way, and try to make sort of a body if you can. The thread I'm using is really, really thin, probably more thin than I should be using for a streamer, but it's the only white stuff I have. Now I'm just going to bring the bobbin cradle up, over and around, and if you don't have one, that's totally fine. But I'm going to use mine, and I'm just going to pull around like I have hackle here. And going to get to the cone head there. Stop, pull it off. Okay, now I'm going to tie this in. And you want to try to get the best you can underneath. I'm going to cut this right now because I know what I'm going to be using here. These scissors don't work. There we go. Okay, now I'm going to just tie this in, and you want to make sure that you're trying to do most of your work. Try to do your work inside the cone head, so it's not showing on the outside, because you want it to be clean on the outside. And see how it's kind of up? Now I can move it back, and now all my work, I tied that in underneath, and now you can't even tell that I tied that in. So I'm gonna do one more wrap actually to make sure. Perfect. Now I'm gonna snip that, do a couple more wraps, and then I'm gonna get my other marabou feather. Last step, you're going to get your feather here. Okay, so you're going to use the wet your stuff down here, and then measure this out. This isn't a very big feather, so I'm going to have to use 2 again. So I'm just going to tie that in, clip out the extra stuff here. That wasn't really even a feather. I should probably redo that, but I'm not going to. Let's see, now you're going to find another feather, like the last good feather I have. Okay, so I'm going to center that down so it's perfect. I'm going to measure it so it's the right length, bring it down, and now tie it in. And remember, you want to try to tie it in so it's underneath the cone head, if that makes sense. Okay, so I'm going to clip this just a little bit. I'm not going to clip it all the way down, and then that'll help me tie it in easier, if that makes sense. Okay, now that's like perfect. Okay, now this is tied in like that, and see, I didn't even need to clip it all the way down to the base. It just gave me more room to tie in. Now you can just whip finish and be done. My head doesn't look perfect, but I think I'm just gonna whip finish it. So you want that cone to be right up. You want the marabou to be right up. You don't really want a thread base in between the cone and the marabou, if that makes sense. But it looks pretty good, actually, and I think I'm going to whip finish, and that's it. Okay, so thank you guys for watching. Sorry it was kind of a long video, longer fly. Hopefully you guys enjoyed it. If you did, make sure to subscribe, like, and make sure to share the videos. So hopefully you liked it, and check out some of my other videos. Thanks.